and I'll be right back.
Okay, so fiction as broken down in imaginative writing is made up of story and plot. So a story is a series of events recorded in their chronological order. So beginning, middle, and end, that's the story. That's how every story ever exists out in the world. It doesn't mean you have to tell it like that, but that's how they exist, right? But a plot is a series of events deliberately arranged so as to reveal their dramatic, thematic, and emotional significance, right? So if you told every story just in its chronological order, there wouldn't be a whole lot to reveal, right? We are trying to reveal things and make them shocking and amazing and thematic and emotional, right? So why in fiction do certain things correlate with others? Why do certain stories have strong symbolisms of specific themes and etc.? So ordinary events have emotional and dramatic significance. And that's why there are these symbols that fiction draws out to make ordinary events interesting. However, ordinary events can be extremely dramatic. I'm about to talk about this in just a second, but something as ordinary as getting a C on an essay can feel like the end of the world, right? So try to make us believe that. Not all fiction has to be action-packed or supernatural. In fact, my favorite fiction is very ordinary. Okay, character. So the most important thing about a character is that this character wants something. Every character must want something. Even the most insignificant character has to desire something. So every character needs to be portrayed as desire, right? So this is a person moving forward in life who wants something. Every single action needs to portray their desire. And that sounds kind of ridiculous or hyperbolic or something, but it's true. In fiction, everything that the character does is driven by what they want. You know, there's a reason that we don't ever see Harry Potter use the bathroom in the books because it's just not significant. It's a natural human thing that he has to deal with, that everybody deals with, but we don't want to read about it because it doesn't make good fiction. So this quote, "He who wants good is good. He who wants evil is evil. He who wants to be lazy is lazy," etc., and so forth. You know, just keep in mind that as humans, we are complicated, so this is not a hard and fast rule. And the most interesting characters are those characters who work actively against their own desires, right? Actively want something, but make bad choices getting there, right? Next, character is portrayed as image, and all of this is kind of wrapped up in their desire. But character as image, how does this person laugh? What do their clothes look like? Every movement of theirs, every gesture, every facial expression, everything reflects your character. Okay, and then finally, oh, well, not finally, as voice. So think from the point of view of the character. You know, what are some catchphrases? Does this person have an accent? Does this person use specific diction? In other words, specific words again and again? I just read In the Garden of Good and Evil about Savannah, which I highly recommend if you're, especially if you're interested in Savannah. It's just this great story wrapped up in like history, which I didn't think I liked, but it was really good. But the main characters kept saying, "I am serious." And by the end, you just had this vision of this character constantly saying, "I am serious," right? So think about what do these, you know, what kind of voice can you give this character, especially if you're writing from the first person perspective, the I. It can be a little bit more tricky to get that voice in there from the third person, but if you're, working hard enough and stealing from the masters enough, then you can do it. And then finally, as action. So characters action. Where do the characters' desires lead them? Again, every movement of your characters on the page should be reflecting what it is that they want in life. So what do they discover, and what decisions are they making? What kind of damage do they do? I mean, we are just human. Every character is a human, which is a lesson I had to learn hard. Don't write the POV of an animal because they're not human. They don't desire things like we do. We don't understand what they really want other than their instincts, right? What kind of change does your character do in the world? Who do they love? And how do they act on that love, right? So think of your characters as these, three-dimensional beings who have these layers to them that you need to explore. There are some other, if you wanted to continue reading more about character, there are a few that I left out of the reading. They're welcome to go check out in Imaginative Writing. Okay. So Genesis and Catastrophe. I hope nobody was too shocked and dismayed. I have at least a few students every semester who are a little bit pissed off reading this piece because you definitely in the beginning have your expectations and your desires for the characters subverted, right? It always feels kind of, shocking and sort of maddening to have an author do a gotcha like that. That's why I don't like O. Henry. Who wrote, the one with the combs. I can't think of it. Anyways, I don't like to be surprised, but this one has such an interesting use of subverting your expectations that I like to use it. You're rooting for this baby to survive in the world in the beginning. And then once you realize who the baby is, you really are kind of just dismayed that an author could make you feel such a way, right? And this is also the inverse of a character. We don't know the baby. We don't know these people, but we know the man. And it gives you this idea of maybe why he became the way he was. Not that we are sympathizing with this person, but we maybe are seeing what the origin of that life was for him, where that anger came from, right? This terrible, tyrannical father who, from day one, doesn't even want this child, kind of wants it to die, right? Look at how weak this baby is. It's called weak so much that, we know he turns into. So this is an example of an origin story, which next week you're going to have the option to write an origin story for a character. And this is showing us sort of the original trauma of a character, the original, we know the origin story of like Batman, where his parents get shot right in front of him. These are examples of origin stories where we see a very well-known character to us turn into either the villain or the hero, depending on who you write about, and where their specific trauma came from. And notice how in that story, every character has a desire. Every character has something that they're working towards. Every single action, every bit of dialogue, from the nurse to the doctor to the dad to the mother especially, right? She just so badly wants her baby to live and wants the doctor, to tell her that everything is going to be fine, even though she, has had such terrible trauma in her life. So every single character is acting on their desire, and every character has an image, right? So we can so clearly see the doctor, see the father, hear their voices, right? We can, within this dialogue, within this room that Dahl is painting for us, we can see, we hear their voices, right? And then we see what they do and how they act on what those desires are. So when you're writing your own fiction pieces, I want you to really think about what it is these characters want. We're going to talk about suspending disbelief here in a second too. Okay, so let's talk about the Ursula K. Le Guin story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. So we get this really idyllic image of this town, right? It opens with this beautiful festival, this gorgeous, all these beautiful people, just everything that seems too good to be true, right? Between old moss-grown gardens, married women carrying their babies, and we get these long descriptions. All the processions lounge towards the north side of the city, where the great water meadow called the Greenfield boys and girls, naked in the bright air, with mud-stained feet and ankles, long leather arms, exercise before the race, right? So then we get these long paragraphs, which we'll look at paragraphs next week, but this is a really interesting, if you haven't noticed, Ursula K. Le Guin uses these long paragraphs punctuated by these single or 3-sentence paragraphs standing in between these long paragraphs to sort of break up where you might see parts of the story. So we get these beautiful long descriptions of Omelas and their people and this horse race, etc., etc. They drink the Drews, right? Then we get this random question right in the middle. Do you believe? Do you accept the festival, the city, the joy? No. Let me describe one more thing. Because we don't have these places. These places don't exist, right? We don't have these idyllic utopias. We always have something terrible behind the scenes. And again, I hope nobody was too dismayed, because this is a tough one too. You end up in this basement with this child that's being held as a, who knows, a slave? But for what? We don't know. It's just being scapegoated and being used to hold all of the city's sadness, right? And then it ends, and so this is an inverse of a character, right? This is like, again, we don't necessarily know this character, but we know sadness. We know anger. We know that utopias don't exist. But there's not a protagonist in this. However, everybody, again, acts for their own desires. And I also asked you, oops, I'm not quite done yet. I also asked you to read Story of an Hour. So let me hang on one second. Okay, so we also have this Kate Chopin story that I asked you to read. I know it was like tacked on last minute, but it's less than 1,000 words. So I hope that you did read it and enjoy it. So a few things about this piece. We learned so much about Mrs. Mallard, even though we're sort of held at like an omniscient view of her. We're just watching her, yet we know what she's thinking, even though we don't hear her actual thoughts. But right off the bat, we learn that she has a heart condition. In the very first sentence, her heart condition is mentioned. And so we know right away that's going to cause a problem later. Her husband, on the other hand, is called kind, loving, tender, right? So he's all these good things. This is what we learn from her, but it's just not enough for her. Or maybe it is enough. It's just that she doesn't want to have her will bent to his, even if it was, as she says, a kind intention. I love this quote here. There would be no one to live for her during those coming years. She would live for herself. There would be no powerful will bending hers in that blind persistence with which men and women believe they have a right to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. A kind intention or a cruel intention made the act seem no less a crime as she looked upon it in that brief moment of illumination. Right? So, what does Mrs. Mallard want? She clearly wants to, in her words, be free. She wants to be alone. Does she act against her own desires? I don't know. I would be curious as to hear what you all have to say about that.
Okay, let's look at the assignment for the week. So, for this assignment, I have you guys doing this really fun bumper sticker assignment where you create characters based on a bumper sticker that I give you. So you're going to create a character. Well, first you create their car, then you create their character, and then you craft a scene that they're going to be in at the end. Okay, so step one, you write down one of these bumper stickers. Step two, describe the vehicle this bumper sticker is stuck on. Make, model, year, color, just the basics. Step three, what condition is the car in? Describe the outside. Step four, what does the inside look like? Describe the smells and textures. List 3 objects inside that you would expect to find, and then a 4th object you wouldn't expect to find. Then you create a character who would own the car. So who is this person? How do they walk? What does their voice sound like? What are they wearing, carrying? How are they holding their face? And then you're going to write a short scene. The scene is the owner of the car has something another person wants. Write the scene that describes their interaction. Do your best to format the scene appropriately. I'm not really so worried about that at this point. I'll help you with that later. But you can look in a book nearby if you need help with dialogue or paragraphing. So, final note, I encourage you to write the scene in such a way that we learn something fitting about the character. In other words, if the bumper sticker that you chose is something political, then maybe they mention their politics, maybe they say something political. It doesn't all have to be politics, right? If it's a jokey sticker, perhaps something they say is silly. Okay. So you choose one of these and then you follow these steps. Okay, you all, let me know if you have questions. There's a couple people who still need to do their peer feedback letters. Please do those. All right. Thank you.